I don't think I've ever been to a performance review where, apart from maybe a passing comment, no one ever said to me that, you showed great empathy, Mark. You showed some great vulnerability that helped your people to understand you more. You showed some compassion. You were very quick to appreciate and acknowledge others. You were thankful when people would help you. And you also asked for help a lot. Like, I don't think there's a KPI sheet for that stuff, folks. Thank you for some of the feedback from last week's potty. I was indeed, as I say in the podcast, shitting in my own nest a little bit, talking about leadership development programs, and perhaps why they're not as effective as they should be. Thank you, Viv, for that question. It was a ripper. Also, thank you to Simone for the question about meetings galore. And I hope that you've had a listen, maybe started to do some things about reducing the number of meetings, and maybe just not being as lazy as we are on sheep dipping human beings into the same old boring PowerPoint-infused leadership programs. And don't catch each other falling backwards as well. So the questions for today, and two great questions as well from two great human beings, Lauren and Gemma. So let's start with Lauren's question. So the question is, if basic human leadership is simple, why is it so hard for leaders to get it right? I'm not sure that it's simple, Lauren. I think there's some attributes within leadership that perhaps aren't simple, but they should be within us, but we tend to forget about them when we find ourselves in a position to demonstrate leadership because we've drunk too much of the Kool-Aid of what I'm going to call the Management 101 book that we were all given when we started to manage other human beings. And there's a real difference between, as we know, management and leadership. So let me give my best shot around why is it so hard for leaders to get it right? My simple answer to that is that we get leadership confused with authority. People in positions of authority start calling themselves leaders, but they behave in a certain way because usually by the time you've got yourself into a position where someone starts to call you a leader and you go to a leadership team meeting and you go to a leadership offsite, I've talked about this stuff before, they're giving you a title as leader, but it doesn't mean you're actually demonstrating leadership. And if anything, I think a lot of times the higher people go up in the organisation and the more they get called leaders, the more they actually break away from the basic human instincts and fundamentals and behaviours, because I think there's a feeling that there's some enormous pressure on. And there's also the feeling that I better keep doing what I've done to get me here, which is really about doing the technical stuff. It's about doing the management stuff. It's about doing the day-to-day work that you have become technically proficient at, whether or not it's been on the job proficiency or whether or not you've gone off and studied, Lauren. I think that we get confused here. So the reason it's hard to get right is because we're confusing authority with leadership. I can give you some personal examples that I call him Bad Mark, and Bad Mark was around for a while. He was a mid-20s high ego arsehole, I'd call him, and and I'm talking about myself here, by the way, not another mark I'm making up, got overly promoted because he was technically good at things and got promoted into positions where he started to get called a leader, but kept doing the technical stuff. And so what that basically means is making sure that everything was going the way that I wanted it to go, keeping control of things, not allowing space indeed for growth of those people that were working for me because I'd continue to go in and micromanage what was going on. But you know what? I'd been handed the Management 101 book, which is sort of like, I think it says on the front page, our people are our most important asset. But when you get to the next page, it's got that crossed out and says, not really. What your most important asset is your technical proficiency. And what you can do, Mark, is you can use that to keep yourself safe, and perhaps get promoted again. So there was no leadership going on there. There was none of the basic human fundamental things that we learn, like, we're hardwired to have social connection. We're hardwired to be part of a tribe. We're hardwired to want to feel a sense of belonging, but we're also hardwired to survive. And I think this is one of the reasons why we move away from the simplicity, because in what I'm going to say, a cutthroat environment, we're going to be doing whatever we can do to survive. And usually the things that make us survive have nothing to do at all with basic human leadership, but everything to do with our technical proficiency and the training we've done over times to get us to the position that we find ourselves in. So I think it's hard for leaders to get it right because we've confused things here, but it's also hard for leaders to get it right, or people to demonstrate leadership, because I don't like that term leaders, because we're actually hardwired to survive. So in a competitive environment, we're going to continue to do what we do that makes us stand out. And as you would know, that's not usually the things like showing some vulnerability, showing some compassion and care, being thankful, being helpful, having a bit of fun, maybe socializing a little bit. I used to get told I went out and had too many coffees and that the people liked my results, but they didn't like the way I went about getting them. So all of those things, all of those basic human fundamentals, we park to the wayside because we don't think we're going to get rewarded for them. And I guess the other thing that happens is that they get a bad name. So this idea that they are called soft skills absolutely grinds my gears, Lauren. And I think if we started to look at them not as soft skills, but essential human skills. Thank you, Julie Tickle, for that term. But I think the other part of it is if we started to reward people in workplaces for demonstrating those basic human skills, we actually might see them start to become more prominent. I don't think I've ever been to a performance review where, apart from maybe a passing comment where someone said you've either been or you haven't been collaborative, but everyone cops that bullshit, I'm sure, is no one ever said to me that, you showed great empathy, Mark, you showed some great vulnerability that helped your people to understand you more, you showed some compassion, you were very quick to appreciate and acknowledge others, you were thankful when people would help you, and you also asked for help a lot. Like, I don't think there's a KPI sheet for that stuff, folks. So the basic human fundamentals, they shouldn't be any different for when you're in a position of authority, but for some reason they become too hard because we don't get recognized for them, we don't get rewarded for them, therefore we don't get it right. What I'm also going to say here, Lauren, is I think it's important that we acknowledge that it's a combination of both that is going to help people to really be more effective in a leadership role. So this isn't all about just embracing, let's call it the intangibles, the things we can't measure, the things we can't manage, but it's more about combining them with those skills, but understanding those technical skills that have got you to where you are today. It's actually time to step back from them and step more into the essential human skills, because that's where the magic happens. That's where you create space for your people. That's where you can be vulnerable and say, I don't know the answer to that question, and it's going to be okay to do that. That's where you can show compassion. That's where you can also have a different perspective and you can embrace what I'm going to call healthy debate, robust debate, and be honest and open with others and not feel like if you do that, revenge is going to be a dish best served cold on you at some point in time. So it is a bit of a balancing act. I think it's situational. I think you need to know, Lauren, when you need to step into your technical skills and also when you need to step into those more basic human leadership skills. But until the system starts to properly acknowledge them and properly reward them, it's going to be hard for anyone in a leadership position to get them right, because what we're not rewarded for, we're not going to do. So, number 2, Gemma, what specific interpersonal skills should we focus on developing, in brackets, as leaders or in a leadership role, to improve our interactions and relationships with our peers who are also in leadership positions? Now, this is a really interesting one, Gemma, and I guess I'd start it by saying, so thank you for the question. I'd start it by saying that there's that big step up for people. And I'm sure that you've been through it. I know I've been through it. And it seems to be the one that sort of traps us a little bit. And it's stepping up from being one of the team, as in part of the team, to all of a sudden you've got that promotion. And now you're in a situation where you are at a higher level and you are perhaps working with people who maybe you're a little bit more competitive than where you were before. And I think if I think about this for myself over time, remember being in rooms where it was ultra competitive at sort of this, I'm going to call it mid to higher level management or leadership positions. And in some respects, the interpersonal skills, or those essential human skills that we developed really well at that level down, again, we seem to park them a bit. There's a bit of a correlation here with the Lauren question, as it's like it becomes a bit more of a competition here. And if I see anything in that space initially, it's usually that you see some what I call tire kicking going on. People kicking each other's tires, particularly the new person that might come in to see whether they make the grade and whether, they're roadworthy to be part of that peer group. You can see a couple of things there that aren't as morally right as just kicking the tires, but you can actually see at times the real competitiveness coming out, and you might even see people surprising others and sort of maybe even trying to do the old thing of throwing them under the bus just to keep themselves in that peer group, at the top of the pecking order. So what are some of the interpersonal skills we should focus on developing? I think one of the first ones is just curiosity, and coming from a very, very different place here, Gemma, rather than being curious about what the person does and what their role is and, all of those sorts of things, what their measures of success are and whatever else we might say in that space. I think we've got to get curious and have some conversations with them around their expectations of you. And you share your expectations of them, because what we're dealing with here are human beings who are now put in a situation as they're moving up the hierarchy that it becomes more competitive. There's less places to go. So it can bring out sometimes, although it brings out the best, it can bring out the worst in us. So a conversation about what do you expect from me, and I don't mean that from a technical perspective, but as a human being, is a really good place to start. I think that's going to help you build some connection. I'd also have a conversation with them, and I'm taking these questions from what I call my first 5 questions. I'm going to share a few of these with you. The second one is about having a conversation with them, again, being curious about your work style preference. And why I think this one's important is that we shouldn't make assumptions that the way we work is the best way to work. We might be able to learn from others, but also we might actually pick up some things that we need to consider when we're working as a peer group. Usually these peer groups get together maybe weekly or fortnightly for meetings, and usually just get into the meetings and what you're doing, but you don't spend enough time talking about how do you do your work? How do you do your best work? What do we expect from each other? So I think those questions are quite good. And I'll throw a third one in. Have a conversation with them about what does great leadership look like? Not who are great leaders, but what does great leadership look like? So when you are seeing that happen, you can be acknowledging and appreciating that. And perhaps when you're not seeing it happen, you can be reminding each other of maybe we're not at our best right now. So I think curiosity is a great place to start. I think another place to be looking at is this whole idea of being helpful. And what I mean by that is you can be helpful in a few ways. One is you can actually give help. But I think the really important one here, Gemma, is that you ask for help. Sometimes when you can end up in one of these lofty heights with the new peers at that level, and some of them may have been around that place for a while, there might be a reluctance from you to reach out and ask for some help because you should know everything that you're doing. And that's the sort of story that we tell ourselves, or maybe we read on page 5 of that, 101 management book I was talking about before. But I think going into this space to build and improve these interactions and relationships is just put it on the table that I know at an individual level we don't all have the answers, but what if we collectively had the answers, and by simply just asking for help and embracing what we call a culture of helpfulness, that we might be able to find that we can solve the problems quicker and that we can build stronger and more deep and meaningful relationships with each other. Now, those sorts of things don't usually get a run again, as I said, on the KPI sheet, but just think of it in the other way. If you're going to be unhelpful and you're not going to ask for help because you're a bit worried about what's going on with your ego, it's saying don't ask for help, or you're not going to give help because you're just going to be a knuckle-dragging oxygen thief and keep all of the ideas to yourself because apparently knowledge is power in some of those spaces. Well, think about what happens then. I know what happens then. There's a fracturing of that group. And then even worse from that, those people reporting to you see the way that you're behaving at this level, and they will mirror the behavior they see. And what I will say to you, because I've seen this happen, when you do understand each other at a human level, at that interpersonal level, when times get hard, and they do get hard, and shit hits the fan, you tend to come together a lot better. When you go past being a signature on an email and we get to know a bit more about you and we check in on you and we show that empathy that we need to show at times, I think these relationships are a lot stronger. You can't make this a compliance-based activity. I think this sort of one plays out a bit naturally. You can certainly offer some ideas on why you think it's important that we're building and we're growing our own interpersonal skills so that we're working more effectively as a team, but you can't enforce it. What will happen there is you'll face resistance. So there you go. A bit about basic human leadership and then interpersonal skills. I think there's a bit of a connection between those two. If you like this one, rate it 5 stars, leave us a little comment, pick up a little topic out of this, play it in a meeting, and then have a conversation. And you start to create some curiosity and some space for some conversations that, let's face it, folks, aren't happening enough in the workplace and need to happen a whole lot more. But until next time, let's keep it as raw and as real, as unfiltered as we can. And thanks for listening. Bye for now.